Hello, my name is Patrick Maher, and I wanted to share some of the impact that I've been witnessing from the Me Too movement that I was actually told started about 10 years ago, but it's gone viral in the last few days. And it's been really impactful to look at to see all the people that are sharing the Me Too, sharing about how they were touched sexually without consent, and just to witness all the pain so obviously out in the culture has been really powerful. Both men and women. I held a men's circle last week and asked that question into that circle, and over half the men in that circle, I think 13 men, over half the circle had been touched sexually without consent. And it's so pervasive in our culture, and I think some of it is so subtle, and some of it is not so subtle. And I often feel like so much of this would be avoided if we had some of the basic structures of sexual, of actual teaching about sexuality, of bringing in all the pieces. If we actually talked about consent, if we actually talked about the pleasures and the joys and the beauties of the sexual connection, we actually taught children to have more sovereignty over their own bodies. And there's so much subtlety in that. It's like we start receiving the messages that we don't have full sovereignty, even as little kids, when we're told, go give your auntie a kiss or something, and you're forced to go do that even though you might not want to. That's a really subtle example of how, wow, when we actually look at it, we're not teaching that from early on. And oftentimes what I'm also hearing in a lot of the circles is that parents are leaving it up to whatever the school systems or just regular society or people or kids' friends to teach them about sexuality, to teach them about what it is and how it works and how to interact with it. And that basic place of just not sharing information is causing a lot of damage. Is avoiding that conversation is causing so much damage. And I feel like so much of the culture that we've wrapped ourselves around regarding sexuality could actually be changed, could actually be different if we just applied some basic knowledge, some basic understandings to the children that are being birthed into our world. Unfortunately, we have leaders and people in position of power who are exhibiting behaviors that are dishonoring of others' consensuality and dishonoring of others' boundaries, and they're getting away with it, and they are also being promoted into positions of power even after being outed for doing some of these things and speaking some of these things. And that's a part that has me pretty concerned. Like, we are in such a complacent place as a culture that we're actually letting that happen by our willingness to not step up and say something's wrong with that. So there's a lot of pieces here, and I think the thing that's coming to me the most right now is how can we actually change this moving forward. And we are addressing that. The Me Too movement is actually bringing a lot of that forward, but I think the biggest, most important piece is that parents start teaching our children about sexuality from an early age. Start sharing about this. Bring it out into the light. Stop making it such a dark and dingy place, and stop making it something that kids have to fumble around in the dark until they figure it out in some random ways and create patterns of challenge that they end up having to unravel later in their life. Like, if we can just start talking about the thing that is a little uncomfortable, it'll be less uncomfortable. It'll actually bring more comfort and more beauty into it. And so that's part of my work, I believe, in the world, is supporting people that when they become parents or as they are parents, that they start showing up differently for their children. They start sharing about these things so we can actually change the culture as we move forward, instead of just being angry about it but still repeating the patterns ongoing. So I want to honor all the vulnerability and all the courage it's taken for people to come out and share their Me Too stories and share all of that hardship and be witnessed and seen and supported. And also, I'm inviting, let's all take that next step and bring this conversation into our regular everyday lives and into the lives of our children, so that we can actually change the culture and have a new experience for our children and our children's children and the generation after that as well.